Hi everybody and welcome to BizTech Academy's Excel Beginners course. This is lesson 3, and in lesson 3 we'll be looking at inputting formulas into cells and manipulating values with those formulas. This is really the cool part of Excel and allows it to do some really good analysis. If you do like the video, of course it'd be great if you could give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel and press the alert button. But without further ado, let's crack on. Okay, so as you can see, I've opened the Tokyo Inc. Spreadsheet, our workbook. You can see in the middle there it says Tokyo Inc. And you can also see the data we put in the last lesson, lesson 2. We inputted the product ID, the product description, and also the product cost. What we're going to do in this particular lesson is we're going to complete sections 5 and 6 of the walkthrough. And we're going to input, we're going to input a markup. We're going to calculate what that markup value is. We're going to add it to the product cost to get a unit cost. And then we're going to add some shipping costs and also then calculate a total cost. And then to do that, we're going to use a number of different formulas, and I'm going to show you how to use those. Before we do that, though, I'm going to move away from the project itself and just tell you about the principles of the formulas. And to do that, we're going to separate. I'm going to open up just a new sheet. So as you can see at the bottom here, I'm just going to press the plus icon and just open up sheet 2. I'll make sure that I zoom in slightly so you can see the numbers, see the cells, and I'm going to then, like I say, give you an introduction lesson into formulas. So when we're talking about formulas, we're talking about, of course, adding two numbers together or manipulating values. So it doesn't obviously have to be just pluses or takeaways. It can be very, very complicated. But for the purposes of this exercise, we'll just look at some basic arithmetic. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add into cell 1, I'm going to just type some numbers, just all the way down to 9. And then what I'm going to do is do it the other way around. So as you can see, I'm just literally typing these in the keyboard. And what we want to do is I want to add these two numbers together. So of course, we all know that 1 and 9 is 10. So I could simply just type in 10. And that's fine, and it's okay for a simple exercise like this, but it doesn't include any traceability, so it doesn't allow us now to audit or to track where that calculation comes from. And it's also no good at all when you've got very, very complex numbers. So what you could do is you could simply just type in equals, and equals is always the starting point for formulas. And what it actually means is that the cell you're in this particular cell, we're in cell C1, and it says C1 equals, we could put 9 and plus 1. And if we then press the enter key, it'll say 10. And we could do the next one. We could say cell C2, and you can see up here it says C2. We could say plus 8 plus 2 equals 10. But to be in truth, if we do that, it's a very long-winded way of doing it, and you'd hope to think that over all the years that Microsoft have developed Excel, they've created ways of calculating sums, calculating values in a lot more efficient way. Well, so what you can actually do, and we'll delete those, is you can actually reference the cells. If you remember rightly, in a previous lesson we talked about the cells A1, A2, C2, C1, and so on. So if we know that the number 1 is in A1, and we know here at the top left it's in A1, and we know that the number 9 is in cell B1, we could do, again, C1 equals, and it equals A1 plus B1. And if we do that and press enter, it gives us 10 again. And as you see there, and I'm just going to double click on the cell to open it, you can see that each of the cells that we've referenced into the calculation or the formula are highlighted in here. So if I then, for example, also added in, I don't know, A2 plus A2, you can see it then highlights it again, and it shows you exactly where the reference of the formula comes from. You can also see in the formula bar here the formula as well. So if we press enter on this, you can see if we click back on that cell without even opening it or entering it, you can see that the formula is A1 plus B1 plus A2. If we do enter it, so if we double click on it or we press F2, it shows again the cells. What you can also do, you can edit then the formula if you wanted to. You can edit it in the cell here. So again, I could put plus B2 and press enter. Or if I undo that, and we go back to where we were, we've got A1 plus B1 plus A2. We can also go to the formula bar here, and we can add it there. So we can put plus B2. and then again it comes up again. And this is very, very useful when you start playing with formulas and you want to edit them, or you're finding some errors and you need to sort of review them and understand exactly where everything is. So in simple terms, you can reference and type in the cells, but there's an even easier way of putting formulas together. So again, if we just delete this, stay in cell C1, and what you can then do is go equals, and you can just click your mouse on the cell you want. So I want A1, and then I want to do a plus sign, and then I move my cursor to B1, sorry, and I click B1, and then I press enter, and there you go. So I could add then, I could just go back into it, go into the menu bar, I could put a plus, and then I could use my mouse and go down to A2, click on 2, and then press enter, and it adds the formula together. Very clever, right? Very, very clever. Now, the other thing that's important to understand is that these formulas are what they call dynamic. So they move down with the spreadsheet. So we've talked before about copying and pasting. So for example, if I just change this formula, if I delete it and I just go to, I just want to do plus A1 plus B1, and I press enter, and let's say I want to do the same formula for all of these other numbers, so 2 plus 8, 3 plus 7, 4 plus 6, and so on. What I could do is I could go equals A2 plus B2 and do that. But there's no need to do that. You can copy it down. So for example, what we're doing here is if I do a copy, so if you remember rightly, Control C, and I go to cell C2, and I do Control or Command V, it then copies that formula. And what you can see in here, it's taken the next reference numbers down, so it's relative. So in cell C1, it's A1 plus B1. You can see that by double clicking on it. If you then go down to C2, it's A2 plus B2. So it's just copied the same formula, but followed the rows down. It's relative to it. So if we do one more, if we enter on that, go back to C2, and we do Control or Command C, so we copy, and then do Command or Control V to paste it, and then double click on the cell to open it, and you can see it's followed it down. And that's because it's dynamic. It changes with the relative reference to the workbook. And this is called a relative cell. It's always change and follow. So another example being, if I actually copied the formula the other way and went Control or Command C and went to D and pasted it, what it then does, it moves across this way. So if I double click on it, you can see it's come to B and C because I've moved the formula across one. Okay, that's important to remember and important to understand. Now, again, this is what's called relative cells. I'm going to undo that. This is called what's called a relative cells. But what happens if you don't want these formulas to roll down? And actually, all you want to do is to multiply each of these numbers by, let's say, this is the number in cell A1. So in this context, number 1. If we do this, we go B2 plus A1. That's fine, that's 10, that's okay, we know that. But we know if we copy this down, it'll do exactly what it did in column C, sorry, and it will relatively follow the formula down, which is not what we want. So what would you do with that? You open up the cell, and in A1, you put a $sign before the A and before the 1, before the cell reference of it that you want to lock. Press return. Of course, it still says 10, but if you then copy that, so Control or Command C, and go down 1, you can see that it's now doing 8 plus 1. If you double click on it, 8 plus 1. Copy it again one more time, copy it one more time again, and you'll see number 1 is locked. And that's making number 1 an absolute cell. And it's important that you understand the difference between relative and absolute cells. And we'll see this more as we do the analysis in Tokyo Inc. Very, very critical. One other thing I just wanted to show you, and if we just get rid of all of this one more time, as we talked before, if we wanted to have our numbers here, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we wanted to add them together, so we want that plus that, as we said before, and we want to copy this down. As we said, we could control C and Control V, or Command C and Command V if you're on a Mac. You could just copy them individually down, or as we know from the previous exercise, we can do the autofill. So you can click over the bottom right of the cell until the cross goes dark, and then you drag it down. and that will do the same thing as copying the formula down. As you can see, if you click on any of these cells, they've got a different formula. Now, just one variation on this, which is important and makes life a little bit easier, is that if you've got something that you want to copy down, a formula you want to copy down a series of rows, instead of dragging it, you can just double click and it will take you to the bottom. So now I'm just going to double click, and as you can see, it automatically takes it down. That's a very, very useful shortcut for autofill. Okay, that gives you a brief explanation of how formulas work. And now what we're going to do is we're going to move back to the Tokyo Ink workbook, and we're going to carry on with the exercise and the project that we've got in hand. Okay, so we're now back in Tokyo Ink, and like I said, first thing we want to do is to add a markup and calculate a unit price for each product, each of the 20 products that we've got listed here. So first thing we need to do is input what the markup it is. And what we'll do from a presentation point of view, we'll put it above the headings here and have it as a standalone number. So the first thing we need to do is insert some rows so that we can input that data. And we're going to insert 2. So again, if you remember from the previous lesson, highlight the row you want to insert, go to the insert icon here, and then click, and we've got 2. Just for reference, what you can do if you're in the future, you don't have to do it twice. You could just highlight 2 rows and then click. And as you can see, it will just enter 2 rows or 2 columns if you were doing it that way. Doesn't really matter. Okay, I'm going to Control or Command Z that and remove it. And then we're going to go up to A1 and we're going to type in a label. We're going to type in markup. And then what we're going to do, we're going to put a value in here. We're going to, for now, we're going to put 0.5, which is 50%. I'll show you in a short while how to format that and make it show 50%, but we all know that 0.5 is equal to 50%, and therefore that's the calculation factor we will use. Next thing to do is to put a couple of headings. So what we want to do here is we're going to have markup. Now, we've typed in markup here, but the most efficient way of doing this would probably have been to copy it from A1, because we've already typed it in, and just paste it into D3. So we'll delete that, and then we'll go to A1, Command or Control C, go to D3, Command or Control V, and there you are, markup. The next heading we want is total unit price, so we'll just type in total unit price, and then we have our headings here. So the next thing to do is we want to calculate the markup. So to calculate the markup, we want a markup value to be put into all of these cells here. So we've got the 20 here. Just make this slightly smaller so you can see the whole screen. There you go. And we want to, as I say, put the markup in all of these cells all the way down here. Okay, so to do that, first of all, we need to do a single calculation. So what we'll do is we'll go equal the product cost, and that needs to be multiplied by, and in Excel, a multiply is not a cross in traditional form, it's an asterisk. Most of you are probably aware of that, but if you aren't, it's an asterisk. And we want to multiply it by 0.5, the 50%. And we press enter, and it says here that the markup is 5. So 50% of 10, half of 10 is 5, and that's calculated. That's great. So what we can do, we can use autofill, and we can just copy that all the way down, or we could double click if we wanted to, and it would follow it down. Oh, but there's errors. So why is that an error? The reason being is because if you click on these cells, we've let them be relative. We haven't locked in cell B1, sorry. So all these cells have followed them down. As you've gone down into these text values, obviously you can't add a value or number to some words, so it comes up with an error. So what we need to do, we need to undo that, get rid of that copy. We need to open up this cell, and then on the B1, we want to make sure that that is an absolute cell. So we put a $sign, wrap it around the B and the 1, and then close it. Now, just a shortcut on that, what you can actually do, and I'll undo that. As you can see in the formula bar, we've got the $sign. I'm going to undo it, and now it hasn't got the $sign. If we then go into the cell, we'll do this one in the formula bar, and if you then press F4, what it does, it automatically, with one keystroke, wraps the reference out and makes it an absolute cell. So when you're starting to use absolute cells a great deal, F4 is really useful for locking in and creating full absolute cells. So we'll press return on that, and then we'll go on to the cell. We'll actually autofill by double clicking this time. So we'll let the cross go black, double click, And there you go. There is all of your markup. So you can see now if you just click on any of these, it's locked in cell B1, do another one, locked in B1, and so on. So it's the relative cell is the C column, the C cells, but it's locked in for B1, and that makes the calculation clear, which is really good. Okay, next one is to calculate the total unit price. And to calculate the total unit price, it's a simple calculation of adding the 10 and the 5 together. So again, we say E4 equals C4 plus D5, and you press enter. And again, you could do this in the formula bar. Many people do. I personally prefer to put it in the cells. I just think you're using the cell, using the workbook directly, and I personally find that more useful. But if you want to use the formula bar, that is also okay, no problem at all. So again, we just need to copy this down here. So we'll use the autofill. We'll use the cheat and do a double click if you like, and we'll double click, and then you've got your total unit price, which is great because now you can see any of these cells. It's just adding these together. As you just click on them, and we've got our total unit price. Now, the thing to notice here, though, is that the total unit price here is, as you can see, it's overlapping. It's longer than the width of the column. Now, what we've shown before is that we could drag the cell, the column, if you wanted to, make it bigger. I'll just undo that. You could also double-click, and it will right size it to the width. But the other way, in some of these activities, you don't want continually large and long columns, or wide columns, I should say. So you might want to keep them the same size and just make them slightly higher. To do that, you can do what's called wrapping the text, or wrap text. And to do that, you click on, and this example, you could do one cell, but we're going to do the whole row because that's where our headings are. And then what you would do, you could go into format if you want, but I like to go into right click and then format cells, so just format the cell. And then you can see there's a number of tabs along the top here, number, alignment, font, border, fill, protection, and we'll use some of these as we go through the formatting lessons. But for now, let's go to alignment. And at the bottom, press wrap text. You see where it says text control? Click the box that says wrap text, and then OK. And what that does, as you can see, it makes this row higher, and it makes everything into the same width of the column. So here it's raised that up a little bit, and it's raised the product cost up a bit, which just makes it a little bit neater, especially if you've got very large titles and you don't want to lose trace of that and have many different widths of width of columns. Sorry, as you go through the spreadsheet. Okay, so what we've done there is we added the markup in. I'm just going to again make this slightly smaller so you can see it. We've added the markup in, we've calculated what the markup is against the product cost, and we've put those two together to make a total unit price. And that, in the walkthrough document, that is section 4. What we're going to do now is look at section 5, and we're going to add some shipping costs and then calculate a total cost. Which is very, very simple. So we'll put the headings in. So we're going to put shipping cost, and as you can see, the cell gets wrapped because we did the whole row, and then we're going to put total price. You could put total landed price if you want, but we'll just stick with total price for now. And then what you do here is we need to input the shipping cost. Now these are manual numbers, so I will input them now, and then I'll return as soon as I've done that. Okay, so as you can see, I've typed in these numbers here. These are the random shipping costs. Of course, you could copy some of these if you wanted to, but it was easy enough to type them in. And as you go through the exercise, I just recommend that you either manually type them in, or if you type in 5 and just copy them down, you can do that obviously yourself as well. We then need to calculate the total price. And the total price is very simple. It's very similar to the total unit price. It's just the two cells across. So what you can do here, you can do the cell G4 equals the shipping cost plus the total unit price. And that equals that. So you could then, if you wanted to, you could copy that down, autofill, and as you can see, that does that, and it just does it. But what we'll show you though, if I just undo all of that, the actual formula is the same from a relative cell point of view as the total unit price. The total unit price calculates the next two cells to the left of the equal cell. And what you can see here is that the total price wants the calculation of the next two cells to the left of where the total price is going to be input. So you could take the total unit price, that formula, because it's relative, and you could do Command or Control C to copy. You could click on the cell and can put Command or Control V to paste it. And again, it's just taking that formula because it's relative. It's just taking it across for one. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, then by all means rewind the video and have a look at it again, or you can just put the formula in. But it does, as you go through your analysis and as you go through time, you'll start using some of these shortcuts and in a far more efficient way, and they will become second nature. I assure you. If it seems difficult now, believe me, it will become second nature. I promise you. Okay, so we'll go back now and we'll just double click and copy this formula down. And there you go. And that basically is the end of lesson 3. We've now put some formulas in. We've taught and learned a little bit about relative cells and absolute cells. And we've taken the Tokyo Ink project to the next level by adding in and calculating a markup, making a unit price including that markup, adding some shipping costs, and then making the total price. So what we'll do in lesson 4 is we'll start looking at ranges of numbers like this here, and we'll try and calculate what the total of a column would be. So next time we're going to calculate some volumes. We're going to input some volumes into here, so basically the amount of units that are sold, and then we're going to calculate a monthly and annual revenue or turnover forecast projection, and then we're going to do the total of that. And to do that, we're going to use functions, and I'll explain more about functions as we get into lesson 4. Okay, again, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and press the alert button. And I look forward to seeing you in lesson 4 next time. Thanks very much.